what's the point really of having an economy that's valued at trillions of dollars if children in this country die because they've been administered contaminated cough syrup? On Keep Talking today, India's killer cough syrups. The death of 23 children in Madhya Pradesh and Rajasthan, and that may not be the final number, because of a cough syrup called Coldrif, is not the first time that we are witnessing this kind of tragedy. A tragedy where medicine that is expected to heal you actually takes your life. Cough syrups have been in the spotlight for a while, not just in India, but also globally. In Gambia, a few years ago, 70 children, at least 70 children, were killed, they say, because of a cough syrup that was made in India. It's very clear that the regulatory system does not work, that corruption is endemic. I'm talking today to someone who really knows how India's pharma sector works, how the industry functions, what the regulatory lack is. He co authored a book called The Truth Pill, which is about India's drug regulatory system, or rather, the myth of the drug regulatory system. He's also someone who is much admired and respected for turning whistleblower a few years ago in the Ranbaxy case. I'm talking to Dinesh Thakur. Dinesh, thank you for joining me and making the time.
Well,
Where does one start? Given that this has happened before and we are experiencing exactly the same thing.
yeah, so I mean, where one starts is essentially by expressing outrage because we just seem to accept it as a normative thing that children die because of poor quality medicine, and for perhaps maybe a week or two, we express outrage, call for accountability, maybe like arrest doctors and put them in jail, and maybe even go as far as arresting the manufacturer who or like suspending the license to make medicine, and then something else takes over in the next news cycle, and we forget about this until the next set of children die again, and then the whole cycle repeats. So that's where we are.
What is it with DEG, diethylene glycol, Dinesh? Why is this poison, this industrial grade substance in medicines? In fact, I was reading the reportage that has come out. It seems Coldrif had 46.28% of this substance, where the WHO and Indian government permissible level is 0.1%. Why is it? Because it's cheap? Why do people use DEG, which is so obviously not for human consumption?
In this particular instance, clearly the diethylene glycol is a problem. But the systemic issue that we are dealing with is not to do with diethylene glycol. For example, last month in September, the All India Institute of Medical Sciences issued a notice to a manufacturer that was making injectable medicine, and they found that the injectable medicine had fungus in it. Okay, and you can imagine what will happen if you inject, mannitol contaminated with fungus into somebody, who's there to get treated. The point I'm trying to make here is that the DEG is a symptom, and we have a systemic issue where we have adulterated and contaminated drugs in our drug system, in our supply chain, and that is the core issue that we have to address. The reason why DEG poisoning becomes that noteworthy is for two reasons. One, because it's given the cough syrup is given to babies whose body weight is significantly smaller than adults. Even a small amount of this stuff actually makes a big deal. I mean, you can imagine kidneys of a baby boy or baby girl, how small they are compared to a fully developed human being, right? When you take this excipient, which in cough syrup, the reason why this contaminant shows up is because medicine by its nature is bitter. You won't be able to administer medicine to children because they won't, the taste is so bitter, they won't take it. And the way that you work around that is by adding flavoring agents. So you'll see when you buy, baby crocin or baby ibuprofen, it's usually contains some kind of flavoring in it. It's got strawberry or cherry flavored, right? And the reason why that it's there is because it makes the medicine palatable for children to take. And in this particular instance, propylene glycol is the correct additive that sweetens that bitter taste of medicine, that makes the cough syrup edible for young children. What happens is that propylene glycol and diethylene glycol are two excipients, chemicals that are used in many, many industries. It's not just pharmaceutical industry. It's used to make brake fluid. It's used to make industrial solvents. The issue here is that when you buy this raw material from whoever you're buying from, you're required as a pharmaceutical manufacturer to test it to make sure that it contains the right kind of purity before you use it to make medicine. The issue that we are dealing with here, whether it's fungus in our injectables or this poison in cough syrup, is that our regulators and our regulations aren't able to deter these manufacturers from skirting the laws. The law says that if you buy an API or an intermediate or an excipient from somebody and you use that to make medicine, it's your job, it's your responsibility to test it and make sure it's of a certain purity before you use it to make medicine. And we have many, many pharmaceutical companies in our country that don't do that. And they don't do that because they're really not afraid of the law. Because in 2023, for example, prior to 2023, the law said that if you were convicted of making adulterated medicine, adulteration here in this particular case is in the presence of diethylene glycol, right? If you were convicted of making adulterated medicine, the law required a judge to punish you to imprisonment of up to 2 years. That was a law until 2023. In 2023, our government passed what is called the Jan Vishwas Act. And the whole notion, the way it was sold, was they were going to decriminalize and make it easy for the industry to operate because there was a big regulatory burden. In that list of laws, one of the things
My
that our
God.
government did is made that offense, which was originally criminal offense, they made it compoundable, meaning the judge now has an option of making the penalty purely a monetary penalty. If you're convicted of making medicine that kills people, and if this is the first time that you're convicted of that, you can just pay some amount of money, as little as 20,000 rupees all the way to maybe 2 lakh rupees, and you just can walk away from the court without any accountability. And we've decriminalized this aspect of our law to make it easy for companies who complained of regulatory burden to walk away with a monetary penalty. And that is the reason why these things happen.
This is evil. I don't make value judgments like this normally, Dinesh, but and we are very familiar with corruption in all walks of life in India, but in the pharma sector, medicines that are supposed to heal and save actually being, offering the kiss of death, and the regulatory framework allowing this, our laws allowing this. I mean, where does one begin? I mean, no wonder, I was reading the piece you co-authored in the Deccan Herald, I think, just after this particular case, and there is so much pessimism that you express because you have encountered it in the last several years, isn't it?
It is. I mean, I've been at it for the last, 2013 is, that Ranbaxy case broke. We're in 2025. For the past 12 years, I've been at it trying to see if we can make any difference in the way that we regulate our medicine. And honestly, it's not just a thankless job, it's a very disappointing, job of late because institute.
Of the political, the polarization and the politics, right? You're showing our pharma sector in poor light if you haul it up for its bad practices. Is that one of the reasons why it has become even more difficult?
Well, clearly that is one aspect of it, but just let's just look at what happened, just last week, right? The chief minister of Madhya Pradesh was pointing fingers at Tamil Nadu, saying that the state of Tamil Nadu didn't do a good job of regulating this pharmaceutical company that made bad quality medicine that killed babies in his state. This is what he said. I'm summarizing it. And as I mentioned to you, in September 2025, just about a month ago, a company based in Indore, in Madhya Pradesh, was making injectable medicine contaminated with fungus that aims at God. Now, should I turn around and ask the same question to the Chief Minister of Madhya Pradesh, saying, why are you not doing an adequate enough job regulating medicines in your state, what is the point of doing this? What is the point of trying to make this, this, I point a finger toward you and you point a finger toward me? What is the point of doing that? We have to look at what is the root cause of this nonsense happening, right? It's not like the last incident that
Yes.
happened in
Yeah.
Jammu is not that long ago.
Yes.
It's in 2020, right? It's
Yes.
about barely 4 or 5 years ago when we had, 12 children die. My point here is that the memories of those children aren't even kind of faded away from our memory right now when we have death of 23 more children. Rather than addressing the root cause of what really happened in Jammu and trying to fix it from a regulations point of view, if our reaction to this is to decriminalize this kind of activity, right? Giving the industry a free pass, how do you expect me to be hopeful about it?
In fact, you mentioned the case in Jammu. I was just reading the Scroll piece or the reportage that Scroll has done on the aftermath of this case and the families and where they are, where this case is
Right.
concerned. And it seems
Right.
this Himachal Pradesh-based company, Digital Vision, and I'm quoting from the Scroll piece, actually
Yes.
is continuing to function, continuing to make medicine, and has actually been pulled up in other states for violations. The question is, how does drug regulation work? Because today, if Coldrif can be tested and you can tell everybody that there is DEG in it, why? What are the checks and balances to ensure that this kind of contaminated drugs do not get into the market?
Health is a state subject, which is on the list 2 of the Indian Constitution, but drugs are on the concurrent list. It's both the responsibility of the central government and also individual states. The way it used to work is that anytime you introduced a new drug in the market, the license to manufacture that new drug was with the central government. And they held that license for 4 years. After 4 years, the responsibility of licensing any manufacturing facility to make that particular drug delegated to state governments. So now within the country, we have as many states and the union territories, they have their own drug controllers. And what happens more often than not is that states derive licensing revenue from the facility that's located within their jurisdiction. Why is it, for example, that we have a lot of manufacturing facilities in Punjab and in Himachal? A lot of the medicine is made in Badi in Himachal and Mohali around that area in Punjab. The reason is very simple because these states have essentially made it financially attractive for pharmaceutical industries to set up their manufacturing facilities there. They get tax incentives to be able to do that. The point I'm trying to make here is that India is one market. It doesn't matter where the medicine is made, like what we see in this particular case, where the medicine was manufactured in Tamil Nadu, but was consumed in Madhya Pradesh and Rajasthan, right? Just like that, any state that actually has a manufacturing facility has the ability to make the medicine that is sold all over the country. The sad part of this, the regulation, the way things have evolved in the country is that the regulator in Madhya Pradesh, who found out that there was a poor quality product sold to its citizens in the state of Madhya Pradesh, has absolutely no jurisdictional control over the state of Tamil Nadu, right? That regulator cannot do anything to hold the bad company that made the bad cough syrup in Tamil Nadu accountable because that's completely a different sovereign under Indian constitution. So the way it works is that the Madhya Pradesh drug regulator will write a letter to the Tamil Nadu drug regulator saying, look, we found a problem with a product that the company within your jurisdiction made, and can you please investigate and find out what is going on there, right? In this particular case, Tamil Nadu government and Tamil Nadu regulators were very responsive. They turned it around very, very quickly, right? If you remember, the initial response from the central government was there is no DG contamination. The first press release that the government put out blamed it on the people saying you shouldn't be using cough syrup. That is where they focused their attention on what really happened here. It is only because the Tamil Nadu drug regulator and Tamil Nadu government actually promptly did the testing and disclosed the fact that this was poison, they had to retract. They had to walk back the initial press release that the Director General of Health Services had put out. Not every government reacts in that way, right? Even Madhya Pradesh government right? Madhya Pradesh drug controller only put out their reports a day after what Tamil Nadu did. My point here is that we are at the mercy of the state governments, whose primary focus is to derive licensing revenue from these manufacturing states to protect that licensing base, right? So they will not, unless they're forced, with an outward set of events, they will never actually sort of go out there and hold these companies to account. Because imagine if you shut down a manufacturing facility, the annual licensing revenue derived from that facility is gone, right? So the point here is that we have a very cumbersome, disjointed, and a poorly resourced and corrupt system that works within a country. Whether we like it or not, this is a reality of what it is. How else would you explain the initial reaction of the government to try and mislead its own people, saying that, look, we don't believe it's a DG poisoning. It's all your problem because you shouldn't be giving cough syrup to children. That was the initial press release that the central government put out, lying through their teeth about DG contamination, right? Why did they do that? Because they don't want to attract bad public attention. Yesterday, the WHO has put out a medicine alert. You saw that, right? And that basically is a bad
Yes,
thing for us.
including Coldrif are on that list.
All of correct, correct. And the point I'm trying to tell you is that when when the Gambian incident happened, in 2022, when the nation of Gambia appointed Fingership Maiden Pharma, a manufacturer based in Haryana, our first response, and if you go back and read the letter that the DCGI wrote to the WHO, it is dripping with sarcasm and hubris, saying, "How dare you question India?" Right? But when the investigation was all done, those deaths, 70 odd deaths, were causally linked to medicine that was made by Maiden Pharma. We know that, right? But the initial reaction was what? The initial reaction was, it's not our responsibility, it's yours.
And Dinesh, I was reading that after the Gambian experience, that India has put in place some testing for anything that's exported from India. Where is so why can't they do that in the domestic scenario as well?
That's a very good question, right? When the Director General of Health Services, implemented this policy that any cough syrup that is exported has to be tested at the government labs. And in fact, Economic Times did a story to say that 100 different samples of export quality medicine was tested and found to be containing DEG, right? So even export, I mean, the stuff that we were exporting was pretty bad stuff. But the question that I asked pointedly at that time was, are Indian lives not worth enough for you to be able to test it for the same, implement the same process? If testing to overseas purchases, right? The countries outside that are buying our products, if it's important for us to test that product, for quality, why can't we implement the same procedures for local consumption? And obviously, somebody in the ministry decided that we are here because of a series of unfortunate and misguided policy implementations that we take, right? We don't want bad
Right.
press internationally, so we want to test what we send outside. But we don't give a crap about children dying within our own states.
It's just it's shocking. So it's not that it's difficult to do or it's not possible. It's just that you don't want to do it.
Correct.
What are the 3 steps or 5 steps that need to be taken immediately tomorrow in order to ensure something like this doesn't happen again? And we are talking only in the limited DEG and cough syrup contamination. There must be so much else that we're not even aware of.
Correct. So, I mean, so the first thing that I think that we as people should demand is that in our country, every state has a straight drug testing lab, right? Every state, by law,
Hmm.
are supposed to
Yeah.
sample medicines from the market, test them for quality, but they do not publish that data. We have to force each drug lab in each state to put it on the internet. How difficult is it for you to be able to, if you've tested that particular sample, right? If, this cough syrup that was made by Tamil Nadu company,
Shreshan Pharma.
yes,
Shreshan Pharma.
right.
Yeah.
So if this product was tested, let's say in the state of Telangana, or in the taste of Andhra Pradesh, or in the state of Gujarat or Maharashtra, I'm talking these states actually have functional drug testing labs. I'm not even talking about Bihar and Jharkhand and Chhattisgarh because there's nothing that exists in those states. But I'm talking about these ones. Even these states that have functional drug testing labs, if they had tested, if they had sampled this cough syrup, tested it, made it public, maybe the regulator in Madhya Pradesh would have noticed and said, you know what, we have bought this stuff, from the same company. Let's try and recall it, take it out of the market before we give it to children, right? That's the first thing that we do. It's not like the taxpayers are not funding the state drug labs. We are, right? It's my tax money, your tax money that's being spent to run these drug labs. What is stopping them from making the results public? Why is it that it's only after a tragedy happens that the state drug labs come in and say, "Oh, we tested this, and we found out that it's contaminated or it has poison"? Why is this information not being made public in a timely manner so that anybody who's buying, right, any state government that's procuring, right, can look at that national database and say, this company has a track record of making bad quality drugs. We're not going to ask them to submit a response to our tender to procure medicines. We don't do that right now. We just do not do that. And this is not wrong, right? We are living in age of digital India. How hard is it for us to be able to set up a national database into which all the regulators should do testing report into, and all the buyers? Because remember, each state buys medicines for its own people, right? It's a part of public procurement, right? And those people who are buying medicines, they can go to the database and say, what is the history of this particular company? Have they made good quality drugs in the past? The central government buys medicines for central government health services. Indian Army buys, medicines for themselves, right? All these public procurement agencies, they should be able to look at this information on the fingertips to be able to do that. Transparency is extremely important. The trouble is that transparency comes with accountability for bureaucrats.
I was just reading, Dinesh, that in Tamil Nadu, this offending pharma company, they have now done a detailed inspection, and they found 364 critical and major lapses across every stage of drug making, from the sourcing of raw materials to manufacturing, testing, and packing. What about the manufacturing process?
Yes, that is my second point because you asked me for three.
Yeah,
I only said one, right? The second is
sure.
by law within India, the Drugs and Cosmetics Act says that with every manufacturing facility in India has to be inspected by a state inspector every year. Worst case, 2 years, right? Every manufacturing facility in India by law has to be inspected every year, worst case 2 years. It basically means that the state of Tamil Nadu should have inspected this facility at least in 2023. We're in 2025 right now, right? Clearly they haven't, right? If they're finding 325 or 50 or whatever that number is, the number of violations in there, that
Yeah.
clearly tells you,
364.
correct. If that is a number, that tells you that this company has been operating with zero oversight, right? The question that needs to be asked of a Tamil Nadu regulator is why did you not inspect this company? When was the last time that you inspected it? Right? That's a good question. Now, imagine if they had inspected this company and if they had found these violations, maybe not as many, maybe half as many, and that inspection report was public, you would have put pressure on the company to fix its problems, right? You would have put pressure on the company to try and resolve all these issues and to institute procedures where they would have tested the propylene glycol before they made the cough syrup. Because we don't do that, because we don't make the reports public, it's funny because the United States FDA comes to India, inspects our facilities that supply to the US, and within a month, that report is public. It's publicly posted on their website. We have, when we do inspections, I mean, the letter that we talked about, the government's first response, it talks about something called risk-based inspections. This is a nonsense that this central regulator has been saying to us to try and distract attention for over 2.5 years right now. Anytime we point out you guys are screwing things up, they'll say we are doing risk-based inspections. Have you seen the pictures? So basically what they say is that India has 10,000 manufacturing units, okay, big and small. And they say we don't have the staff, we don't have the people to inspect all 10,000, right? So what we do is we find out which are the riskiest ones. And how they assess risk, I don't know, because they don't tell us how they assess risk. And they say that because we don't have enough staff, we inspect the risky ones before, and we want to kind of make sure that those ones are not actually causing trouble. My question is very simple. In the reporting that we have seen after this incident, pictures of the Srishan Pharma manufacturing facilities have been posted on various news organizations for reporting. Does it even look like a manufacturing facility to you? Right? If that is not a risk to a regulator, what is? It looks like a shed in my garage that actually mixing some chemicals, right? If that doesn't rise to a level of a risky business making life-saving medicines for people in your state, I don't know what to tell you.
We talked about the deaths in Gambia because of Maiden Pharma's cough syrups. We know the WHO has put out an alert about three cough syrups, including Coldrif, after this particular instance in October. Even though the Indian government has
Yeah.
said, or the drug organization has said, that those three cough syrups are not exported. But having said that, is there an ill repute that Indian
That's
cough
correct.
syrups and by extension other pharma products may get as a result of this, and what is the impact that will have?
See, one of the challenges that we have in countries that procure medicines from India is twofold, right? So we ship a lot of medicine to the United States, but they have a very tight regulator, right? And so the medicine that is shipped to the US is made to US standards, right? So
Yeah.
they come here, they make sure that they inspect these facilities and make sure that we follow their standards when they manufacture medicine for the United States. But then there's a completely different world that exists that also buys medicines from us. The poor nations in Africa and Latin America. They do not have the same state capacity to regulate what is really the kind of medicine that they're buying, right? And this is where you have problems like the Gambia. One of the things that has happened, post Gambia is Nigeria has instituted a program where they are now checking every batch of imported drug before it goes into the country, and they're finding problems. And this was reported in a journal article. With that data, they are now going to the Pan African Regulation Union and basically telling them that, look, this is the testing that we are doing. These are the kind of problems that we are finding. If you are buying medicines from these companies, please be aware that they don't have a good record. It doesn't manifest in our bottom line right now because it's going to take some time for these countries to be able to wise up and ask difficult questions of us. But it will happen. It may not happen in a year, 2 years, or 3 years, but 10 years down the road, you will see that the people who are buying medicines from us will stop buying medicines because just like what happened with during the pandemic, because we were the largest supplier of vaccines, right? And because of all the nonsense that happened, although we had committed to supplying vaccines to Africa, we did not do that because of whatever happened in the country. And now what African Union has done with the help of Gavi is they are building up vaccine capacity so that they're not dependent upon India to import a vaccine into Africa. Similar situation is going to happen here with drugs as well. It's not going to happen overnight because these facilities don't get built overnight. They take time to build. They have to go through a validation process, commission the plan, and getting this operational. It's a multi-year project. But the moment they build capacity in Africa, guess who's going to get affected?
Maiden Pharma, Shrishan Pharma now. These companies like Digital Vision, I think, is the Himachal-based company that was that had
Correct.
created the cough syrup Cold Best for in the Jammu case. These seem to be really small companies. Is it fair to say
Correct.
that the small companies are the ones are the people who are responsible for this? And should we breathe a sigh of relief when it comes to the big companies? Or is that a naive way to look at it, given that you have worked in India's biggest company and we know where that Ranbaxy story went?
For bigger companies, I think that because they export to the United States and the US government is very transparent, there is enough data about the quality of medicines that the bigger companies export to the US. You can go look at it. How many products are recalled? How many import alerts are imposed? What kind of warning letters that the US FDA imposes on large Indian pharma companies? All that information is clearly available in the US FDA website. So you'll know from there how good our manufacturing
Yeah.
capacity is. Okay, so that's the first part of the answer. The second part of the answer is the smaller companies, the small and medium pharma, which is usually where we see a lot of this nonsense. It's primarily because these companies have never been held to a manufacturing standard to comply with what the WHO GMP says. We've always given them a leeway and free hand to be able to not comply with it. In fact, after the Gambia, the National Drug Regulator made it mandatory to upgrade to WHO CGMP standards. But the medium and small company lobby group has lobbied the government to say that we need more time.
Yeah.
Give us an extension of 2 more years and give us a whole bunch of money because we don't have the capacity to be able to upgrade our facilities, train our people to be able to comply with the WHO standards. And the government has given that. And this is not the first time that this has happened. This is a repeating issue every time the government wants to upgrade standards and facilities. The small and medium pharma company lobbies, supported by political parties, always lobbies against them and essentially pushes the deadline back, which is what has happened in this particular case as well.
We've all read of the Ranbaxy case and how it took the time it took, and the kind of several and multiple organizations that came into play from the US in order to come to a conclusion. Uh, is there a lesson there for India? Can it be done in India, or does it, or is it only political will that can ensure this, and political will that comes from the people's demand, from public demand?
Well, listen. So the only reason things work that work in the United States, and they don't work anymore
Yeah.
because even that country's institutions have been hollowed out. I mean, the current administration that you're seeing right now is systematically hollowing out the Department of Justice, the Food and Drug Administration. So this is not unique to India. This is what is happening. What is Trump doing to the U.S. institutions is equally bad. The point is this. The point is that unless we are interested in building institutions, in investing the right kind of time and effort and money in doing that, in making sure that we are appointing qualified people to run these institutions, this is not going to go away. It's only going to get worse. I mean, what you're seeing right now, the only reason why you see DEG poisoning, as a signal, is simply because kids' bodies are unable to process the amount of poison in that syrup. If you take that same syrup, right, you probably have a bad stomach for a couple of days. Nothing's going to happen to you because your body's mass will actually excrete it out through your kidneys. Kids are unable to do that. And we don't have systems in our country to be able to detect this kind of stuff. We don't have proper epidemiological systems in our country because we've never invested in making those kind of systems available, right? I mean, during COVID, who were the people who were sitting there and responding to press releases? It was the head of ICMR, who's not an epidemiologist. He's a pediatrician or a cardiovascular surgeon. They know nothing about public health. And the health secretary, who's a bureaucrat, he knows nothing about. And we had one person from Niti Aayog who predicted that within after the second wave, within a few months, the number of cases will go down to zero. Do you remember the graph that they showed? That said that because the political leadership wanted, we'll have all the cases will go down to zero in 6 months or something like that. These are the people who are supposedly the guardians of our healthcare system.
Dinesh, all the best. Thank you for joining me. We'll keep talking because this battle that you wage for public health and for effective public health policies is absolutely critical to all of us. And more power to you.
Thank you.
And thank you for your time. I hope that you will like, share, and subscribe because those little actions actually make a world of a difference. It allows us to keep talking.